Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. I used to hike alone. People always told me that was reckless, maybe even stupid, but I didn't care. The forest was the only place where my mind would quiet down. No emails, no buzzing phones, no people trying to reach into my life. Just trees, wind, and the occasional rustle of a deer stepping on dry leaves. I liked it that way. That day, I went into Black Hollow Forest. It's about 3 hours from where I live. I'd been there before, but only on the marked trails. That morning, something in me itched for more. I wanted to go deeper, to places less walked, less touched. The sun was high when I veered off the path. I found an old trail, barely visible, like it had been swallowed by time. The trees here were closer together, thicker, casting long shadows that shouldn't have existed at noon. But I told myself it was just my imagination. I kept walking. After maybe an hour, I came to a small clearing, and in the center of it was a creek. It was thin and still, like glass laid across the ground. No sound of rushing water, no insects chirping, not even a breeze. Just silence. Total, unnatural silence. My ears rang with it. It was like the forest itself was holding its breath. I stepped toward the water, crouched, and touched the surface. It rippled, but not like water usually does. It was slower, thicker, like I'd dipped my finger into gelatin or oil. And when I pulled my hand back, the ripple didn't stop. It kept moving, as if something beneath was stirring. That's when I heard it. A voice. Low, wet, gurgling like it had traveled through water and rot to reach me. And it said my name. My real name. Not the casual Danny people use. It said Daniel, slowly, like it was savoring every syllable. I spun around. No one was there. Just trees. Still no sound. No birds. Not even wind. But the feeling of being watched was overwhelming, like a dozen unseen eyes pressed into my skin. I ran. No hesitation. I turned and sprinted into the woods, crashing through branches and roots. I didn't look back. I thought I could outrun it, whatever it was. But the forest twisted. No matter which way I went, I'd stumble into the same clearing. That same creek. That same glassy surface waiting for me like a mirror. By the third time, I stopped. I was gasping, sweating, and dizzy. My legs felt like jelly. I screamed into the woods. No echo. I cursed. I cried. I begged for this to be a dream. Then the whisper came again, clearer this time. Come closer. See yourself. I don't know why I listened. Maybe I was too tired. Maybe it had wormed its way into my head, soft and slow, like a thought I believed was my own. I stepped back to the edge of the water, and I looked. I saw my reflection, or what should have been my reflection. Same jacket, same face, but pale, eyes too wide, a grin too sharp, and behind it, dragging through the dirt, something. It was red, wet, heavy. I think it was a body. I couldn't see the face, but the limbs, they bent the wrong way. Snapped. The reflection tilted its head, like it was studying me. And then it reached out. Its arm came up, breaking the surface. Not the reflection's arm, a real one. Wet, blue-veined, with long fingers and broken nails. It grabbed the edge of the creek, and started pulling itself up. I stumbled backward, heart slamming in my chest. That's the last thing I remember. I must have passed out. When I woke up, I was at the edge of the forest, sprawled out in the dirt. My clothes were soaked, like I'd been submerged in that water. My backpack was gone. My GPS dead. My watch read 3:03 a.m., and no matter what I did, it wouldn't tick forward. I made it home before sunrise. I don't talk about this. Not to my friends. Not to my family. I even convinced myself it was a hallucination from dehydration or maybe bad mushrooms in the woods. But then it started happening in my sleep. I dream of the creek. I hear the voice. I see that pale version of me, dragging something closer every night. Last week, I woke up with dirt under my nails and water pooled beneath my bed. My feet were muddy, and last night, my reflection didn't move when I did. It just smiled. I think it's getting closer. Story 2. Last summer, my cousin Josh and I decided to go camping in Fernridge Woods. You probably haven't heard of it. Hell, even most locals pretend it doesn't exist. It's tucked way up north, past the last gas station, past the last gravel road, right into the parts of the map that get fuzzy. One of those places that never made it to Google Earth. I remember we were in his truck, bouncing along a dirt path that barely looked like a road anymore, beer in the cooler and gear in the back. Josh was laughing, making fun of an old newspaper clipping I found online about a logging crew that burned alive in those woods back in the 1930s. Supposedly, a freak fire tore through their camp at night. Nobody made it out. Some people said it was lightning. Others whispered about sabotage. There were even rumors of a cursed lantern, the only thing left intact after the blaze, glowing red, swinging on a branch above a pile of blackened bones. We laughed it off, like idiots. By late afternoon, we had set up camp near a ridge that overlooked the forest. You could see the treetops stretch for miles. No reception, no people, just pine, rock, and silence. That night, around 11, we were sitting by the fire, talking about nothing. That's when Josh nudged me. "Hey," he said, pointing toward the trees. "You see that?" At first, I didn't, but then I saw a faint red glow in the distance. It was soft at first, like a taillight through fog. Then it started swaying, side to side. Probably some other campers, I said, though I didn't believe it. We hadn't seen a soul all day. Josh grabbed his flashlight. "Let's go say hi." We didn't even argue. We just went. I brought my pocket knife, just in case. As we stepped into the woods, the temperature dropped. I mean dropped, like walking into a freezer. Our breath came out in clouds, and the trees around us started to look wrong, charred in places. Whole sections of bark blackened and brittle like they'd been in a fire last week, not decades ago. And that smell, smoke but old, like a campfire that never went out. The red lantern kept swaying ahead of us, always just far enough that we couldn't quite see what was holding it. I kept waiting to see a hand, a face, anything, but there was nothing. Just that red light cutting through the trees like it owned the night. Then it stopped, midair, not like someone had set it down. It just hovered. No string, no branch, just hanging in the black. Josh stepped forward, raising his light. "Hello," he called out. Nothing, just the softest of wind through the trees. He stepped closer. The lantern dropped. I swear to God, it didn't fall. It lowered itself, slow and deliberate, like it was being handed to us. When we reached the spot, there was no lantern, just a small pile of ashes and a scrap of fabric, plaid flannel, old and singed at the edges, stained with something dark and sticky. Josh reached down and touched it, and that's when he screamed. I've known Josh since we were kids. I've seen him get a fish hook through his thumb and not make sound, but he screamed like his hand had been dunked in boiling oil. He yanked his arm back, and I could see the skin on his palm already blistering, raised bubbles forming like hot wax. And then we saw them, figures, moving between the trees. Not people, not really, more like outlines, charred shadows, human shaped, but wrong. They had no faces, no clothes, just blackened skin like cracked coal, glowing red in the joints and around the eyes like something was burning inside them. They were dragging axes, not raised, just dragging, making this low scraping sound against the forest floor like steel on stone. We didn't wait. We ran. I don't even remember which direction. We just ran. Branches cut our faces. I lost a shoe. Josh tripped once, screamed again, but got up. Behind us, I swear I could hear those axes scraping closer, steady like they didn't need to rush. When we finally burst through the clearing back into our campsite, I thought we'd made it. But then we looked up. The red lantern was hanging above our tent, swinging, slowly, side to side, still burning. We didn't talk. We didn't grab anything. We just got in the truck and left. Left the tent, the food, everything. Josh didn't say a word until we were 30 miles out. He kept shaking his hand like it was still on fire. We drove straight through the night. Neither of us slept. Weeks later, he still has the scar. Big, red, and angry looking, right in the center of his palm. Doctors said it looked like a thermal burn, but they couldn't explain it. Sometimes, late at night, Josh texts me a photo. It's always the same. His hand, and that damn lantern, reflected in the window behind him, still glowing red. Story 3. I've never told anyone this story before. Not my wife, not my friends, not even the guy who published my photography book on North American wilderness. If they knew, they'd say I'm crazy, or worse, accuse me of faking it for attention. But what I saw out there was real, and it still haunts me. This happened 6 years ago, in a forest older than anything most people can imagine. Old pine, a sprawling, damp place up in the far northeast, right near the Canadian border. You don't hear about it on travel blogs. It's not tourist friendly. No cell signal. No marked trails. But for a wildlife photographer like me, that forest was gold. I was working on a long-term project documenting moss growth. Yeah, I know it sounds boring, but some of these moss beds have been alive longer than the Declaration of Independence. The real treasure was this one patch I'd read about in an obscure journal, written by a naturalist in 1892. He said it was a living carpet, green with time itself, and never known to dry. Most folks dismissed it as folklore, but I found it. Took me 2 days of hiking off-path, guided only by fragments of an old topographic map and a gut feeling. When I finally saw it, I froze. The moss spread out like an emerald lake across a clearing, thick and glistening, even though it hadn't rained in a week. It looked soft, unnaturally soft, like it was breathing. I set up camp nearby, just on the edge of the clearing. No animals, no bugs, no birds, just trees, moss, and this uncomfortable silence that felt like it had weight. I brushed it off as forced weirdness. You'd be amazed how quiet the woods get when they're truly untouched. Around 2:40 a.m., I woke up to the sound of clicking. My camera, it was mounted on the tripod, a few feet from my tent, where I'd left it after shooting long exposures of the clearing before bed. But now, it was going off automatically, rapid fire, like someone was pressing the shutter over and over. At first, I thought maybe a raccoon had knocked it, or the timer was acting up. But then I noticed something odd. The lens wasn't aimed at the clearing anymore. It was aimed directly at my tent. I froze, every muscle in my body stiff. I didn't move for a full minute. Just listened. Nothing. No footsteps. No wind. Just that cold, rhythmic click, click, click. I slowly unzipped the flap and peeked out. The moonlight made the moss glow faintly, like green fire underwater. The camera stood still, perfectly balanced, untouched, but the shutter was still going, like it had a mind of its own. I crawled out, heart pounding, and walked over. My breath fogged in the air, and it hit me that the temperature had dropped dramatically. I checked the screen. The last 50 or 60 photos, they weren't of me, or the tent, or anything I could explain. They were all the same. Rows of yellow eyes, glowing, staring, from the moss. Hundreds of them, wide open, round, almost human but not. Some were close, some far, all watching. I spun around and looked at the mossy clearing with my own eyes. Nothing, just moss. I looked again through the camera lens. They were there, dozens of them, maybe more, blinking, moving, slowly, closer. I don't remember making the conscious decision to run, but I must have, because the next thing I knew, I was grabbing my gear with trembling hands, shoving everything into my pack without folding it properly. The tent stayed, the cooking pot, my backup battery, gone. I didn't even bother to follow my GPS. I just ran, straight through the trees, branches cutting my arms, boots soaking in black mud, until finally I saw the reflection of sunrise on the hood of my truck. I drove without stopping, didn't even take off my boots when I got in. I just drove. It wasn't until a few weeks later that I got the courage to go through the camera roll. Most of the pictures were just blur, motion, panic, but the ones taken during that clicking episode, one photo, just one, showed something reaching toward the tent. A hand, or something like a hand, covered in thick moss. Fingers too long, too thin, clawed at the end, pressing into the tent flap from the outside. I stared at it for hours, tried to convince myself it was a trick of the light, that I'd leaned something weird against the tent. But I knew better. I deleted the image, deleted the whole folder, threw the SD card into the fireplace, and I never went back. But the weird thing is, ever since then, moss has started growing around my house. Not just in the garden or under the porch, but along the windowsills, the back door frame, inside the garage, even in summer, even in sunlight. And sometimes, I wake up in the middle of the night and smell damp earth and hear a shutter clicking somewhere in the dark.